us at our March 26th, 2025 Project Advocacy Committee meeting. This is our third meeting of the year, and I think it's going to be a pretty fun meeting for everyone that has shown up. And we got some good items in addition to the project we're going to be covering tonight. So just briefly, I'll go over our agenda for the night. Start with some introductions just so that all of our members can introduce themselves and we can also learn a little bit about the developers so we can get that back and forth going. And then I'll have some updates for you on just one project actually that's coming up tomorrow. And then we'll go ahead with our presentation and we'll score the project. After that, I think we have a interesting item for all of you who were here, who have been with us when we scored Pleasant Hills at the end of last year. We have an update on the process that we've been developing and a little bit of a model for how we want to handle our engagement with Pleasant Hills.
And ask for some of y'all's feedback as we
Yes,
plan next step.
that is the goal. We want to see what you all think of what we've worked out and if we should go ahead and do it and how we should go ahead and do it. But first, Chick-fil-A community meeting tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. It's via Zoom. We sent out an action alert, so you may have received that. This is the project that's on the corner of Race Street and San Carlos. I'm sure some of you are aware of it. And this is their first community engagement meeting that they're going to be holding for this project, and maybe the only one as well. So if you have thoughts about it, make sure you're there. And with that out of the way, I think we can go ahead and do a little round of introductions for everybody. I'm Jake. I am our manager of development projects here at Catalyze SV. I operate our PAC. I'll go ahead and pass it off to Alex so he can introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Alex Shore, one of the co-founders of Catalyze SV. I will pass it to Sandana.
Hi everyone, I'm Sandana. I'm a student at San Jose State, and I've been with Catalyze SV for since like September 2023, and I'm also part of Cupertino for All in Greenfoot Hills. I'll pass it on to Mason.
Hey everyone, apologies that my video's off. I'm eating dinner right now. But Mason Fong, former Sunnyvale City Council member, now land use consultant, former staffer to San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan, and former Vice Mayor Chappie Jones, which is this project's in that district. So looking forward to the presentation. I'll pass it off to Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. Sorry, I'm just getting over strep throat, so voice is a little bit off. But yeah, been with Catalyze SV almost a year now, starting yeah, I think it was March of 2024, so just about a year now.
Whole year. Good to have you here, Chris.
Yeah, and you know, I'm looking to go into you know, kind of city politics, and urban planning, specifically in regards to real estate, you know, quality of life, demographics, all that stuff is of interest to me and would greatly welcome any sort of participation in any of those fields. And so, yeah, Catalyze SV is a great way to stay on top of the news in Silicon Valley, and great group of people to work with. So, yeah, always look forward to it.
Thanks. Good to have you here, Chris. You can go ahead and pass it off to Betsy, or
Sure.
oh, I'm muted, Betsy. I don't know.
This laptop needs an external webcam, so here we are. Hi, Betsy Magus, resident in the city of Santa Clara. This one is just across the street into San Jose, so I figured I'd turn up for this one. I am a dedicated bicycle commuter and a member of the City of Santa Clara and County of Santa Clara / VTA Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committees, speaking for myself. And I don't know who didn't go, so next.
Carlin. If Carlin is here, Daphne.
There we go. I'm Colin Black, West San Jose. This is my meeting. and happy to be here.
Good to have you, as always.
It's the beginning, really. And my interest is in urban villages, and this is one of the first projects that I really got involved with the original Stevens Creek Urban Village Advisory Group, SCAG. And it died, and then now it's been revived. This is good.
All right. Hopefully we can get some good input, Carlin, and from the history of the whole process tonight. Who hasn't? Daphne, you could say a little word.
Hi, sorry for being late. I'm Daphne. This is my second meeting. And I live in Los Altos. Is that all I'm supposed to say?
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect. Thank you.
How about Catherine?
Oh, is Catherine?
Oh yeah, there's also Kelvin.
Kelvin. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hi. This is my first meeting. Hi, I'm Kelvin. I'm an urban planner. I work in a private consulting firm. We do a lot of land use entitlements, so work on a lot of development projects, affordable housing projects. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to this first meeting.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the first time.
Yeah.
I hope you find it interesting. I think that's everybody. So if our developer is joining us tonight, Alden, if you would like to introduce yourself, and then I can pass it over to you and we can get started talking about the project after you talk about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. It's great to meet you all. Thank you for having me. It's really exciting and frankly, a little bit refreshing to connect with, an active community group that is interested in development and kind of understands its potential positive impacts on the surrounding community and not just the negatives. So I'm happy to be here and have a short presentation for you guys tonight to give you kind of a sense of the project we're proposing in San Jose. And I'll go ahead and pull it up now.
Yes, and then I believe you should be able to share your screen as well.
Great. Alrighty, let's see if I can go into presentation mode. Is that popping up for you guys?
Sure is.
Great, okay. I guess before I dive in, a couple sort of housekeeping things. Please feel free to answer or ask questions as I go. Happy to make this more of a conversation if that's kind of preferable for you all. Also, just a quick caveat that we are still fairly early in the project. So some of the things I'm presenting tonight could change a little bit as the project continues to evolve. That said, I think big picture, kind of the overall vision and layout and density that you're seeing here is kind of what we're planning to do. And we have already gone through one round of preliminary review with the city and didn't receive any comments that would kind of force us to, go back to the drawing board. So with some minor revisions, this is more or less kind of what the project is planned to be as of today. So with that, I will dive in. I'm going to do a quick overview of Holland just to give you guys some context of who we are, talk about the project a little bit, and then I've kind of organized the rest of the presentation based on your scorecard and kind of use that as a way to explore the project in some more detail. So I will dive in. So quickly about Holland Partner Group. We are a private multifamily development, construction, and management company. So what that means is we're kind of vertically integrated. We find the sites, we hire the consultants to design it, we get it entitled, and then we actually build it ourselves with our in-house GC, and we will manage it after it's completed. So that's a little unusual. There aren't too many companies that do all of those things. We were founded in 2001. We're based in Vancouver, Washington, so just outside of Portland, Oregon, and we're active in basically every major West Coast city. Seattle, LA, San Diego, Denver, and Portland, and obviously here in the Bay Area. Since we were founded, we have built or in the process of building close to 50,000 units. So a pretty significant number. We're definitely one of the more active developers on the West Coast. However, you probably won't recognize most of our projects because we don't actually put our name on them. Most of our projects we do sell to others after we complete them. So we're not like an Avalon or a Hanover where we kind of, paste our brand on every single project we develop. Most of our projects have their own kind of unique brand and identity, and you wouldn't know they're a Holland project if you didn't know. Locally, we've got a big concentration in downtown Oakland. We went pretty heavy into Oakland kind of in the last cycle, and have 5 projects in mostly the downtown, uptown area, totaling about 1,500 units. And then closer to this project in the South Bay, our most recent project is Gateway Crossings, which is in Santa Clara, although just on the line with San Jose. That's near the Coleman Highline project, the Santa Clara Caltrain station, and hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, the future BART station as well. Just a quick note on kind of the type of projects we build. Frankly, like apartments, luxury apartments are a little bit of a commodity product. However, we do like to think that we don't do totally cookie cutter projects. We try to give each one kind of unique identity, and a lot of that comes through in the branding and the interior design, the landscaping. There's definitely a lot of thought that goes into that. And some of our interiors are a little bit more kind of on the eclectic side. So this is just a collection of images of our first building of 2 buildings at Gateway Crossings, which just opened up last summer. And just to give you kind of a flavor of the type of stuff we build. That said, our projects range from high rises to kind of more low density stuff as well. So Stevens Creek, as I was just kind of reviewing the presentation before jumping on to the meeting, I realized I did not include a slide with an overall aerial to kind of position you all, but I think most of you are probably very familiar with the site. It's pretty high visibility and central within West San Jose. So we are at the intersection of Stevens Creek Boulevard and Saratoga, kind of looking roughly sort of southeast here. And this is kind of the aerial view of the picture or the project we're proposing. So it's 2 residential buildings of a type 3 construction for any of you who are familiar with construction typology. That basically means that most of the residential floors are constructed in wood frame, and it sits over a 3-story concrete podium that contains retail amenities, parking, as well as some units. So overall, we've got 253 units, or excuse me, 253, 532 units across the 2 buildings, about evenly split. We've also got about 14,000 square feet of retail, also roughly evenly split between the buildings, and all kind of clustered around this new public plaza that's right at the intersection here. And the retail is kind of framed in this sort of stone-like tile element to kind of give it its own identity. There is a paseo that kind of roughly cuts the site in half, and each building will have its own kind of private landscaped courtyard with kind of pool and outdoor recreational areas. So I'm just going to quickly run through a few images that were included in our most recent planning submittal. This is a more street level view of the first building, which is on Saratoga. The plaza is to our left. The retail is kind of dead center. And most of our amenities and lobbies are sort of in those more glassy elements to the right along Saratoga. This is a view of the second building from Stevens Creek. In this case, the plaza is sort of off to our right. The retail again is in that sort of stone element there with the signage on the awnings. And then our main lobby is right on Stevens Creek, kind of that set of double doors under the kind of orange volume there. And similar to the first building, all of the, or most of the amenities are at the ground level, kind of directly facing the sidewalk with a lot of glazing to kind of create that connection between the public realm and the private, residential amenities in the building. So this here is obviously a site plan. Again, just to orient everyone, we're at Saratoga and Stevens Creek. Our site here is kind of roughly divided in half by this paseo. Each building is sort of a C shape. We've got a courtyard that's surrounded on most sides, but we do like to include these cuts in the building to allow for light and air to get to the interior units and the courtyard. And our public plaza is right up there at the intersection. And this gives you a better sense of how the retail is sort of clustered right at the plaza. And obviously the intention there is to sort of activate the plaza and to give that retail pretty high visibility so that the tenants, have a greater chance of success and thriving at this location. I guess should I stop here for questions or just plow through and wait till the end?
We can stop here for questions and see if anyone has any real quick.
Oh, so
and also if anyone has any throughout the presentation, as Alden said, just go ahead and ask.
So since this is a mixed use, like it's does like the retail, like is it on the ground level floor and like the like I see here are the residential units attached to it like on the side or from is
that's a good question and a keen observation. So this view that we're looking at is a little bit of a combination. The view is really that's one of our landscape sheets from the entitlement set. So it's not really focused on the building. It's more focused on the plaza and the streetscape. And the whole white section of the building is basically a typical residential level. So think of it as like, floor 3 through 8 that's in the wood frame. The retail here is a markup that I added just to provide some context for where the retail sits. But to your question, the retail does sit on the ground level.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead and
ask. Big question on my mind. This is Carl. When this was originally proposed a long time ago as part of the Stevens Creek Urban Village, it was a much bigger, taller project. Have you given any thought to, say, timber over the 3 stories and get some additional height there? This is a critical density situation. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, does it make any sense to use the allowable height of the building to go up a few more floors?
Yeah.
With the timber or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do have a slide that kind of addresses that topic later on, but I think now's a great time to speak to it. The height limits per the urban village plan are actually quite high at this location, as Carlin was just describing. I actually don't even have that number off the top of my head, but theoretically we could go much higher here. The key constraint for us is really in multifamily. There are only a few construction types that are used. And what we're essentially doing here is maxing out the height that we can do at this type of construction, type 3 construction, which uses wood framing sitting over sort of a concrete garage. The reality is that today and for the foreseeable future, type 1 construction, which is what you think of as like a high rise, so it's either concrete or in very rare cases, a steel frame, that is a much more expensive project. And unfortunately today, the rents, not just here, but kind of throughout Silicon Valley, generally don't support that type of construction. So we have looked at that scenario very early on when we were looking at the site, and we just couldn't get that to pencil. And I guess just to give you some more context on that, we have another site in Santa Clara in the Tasman East specific plan that we've been working on for going on a decade, and actually have that fully entitled, fully plan check. So like if we wanted to, we could pull the permit today, and it's a high-rise project, type 1 construction, and we have not been able to get that financed for several years now. And we're actually in the process of going back to the drawing board and getting that site re-entitled for a lower density wood frame project, very similar to what we're proposing here at Stevens Creek. So hopefully, in the future, as the market changes and conditions change, more dense construction will be feasible along Stevens Creek, and I'd love to see that. But as of today, and as far out as we can see, we just can't make it work economically. Does that sort of answer your question, Carlin?
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And Alden, so it sounds like, I think generally we've heard this from other developers as well. It's that, finding money to build those high rise, those denser buildings has been very difficult.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And I think you'll find that any taller projects that have been opened recently or built recently were probably approved and financed either pre-COVID or like very early in COVID, before people understood exactly, the repercussions or where things were headed.
Do you have any sort of indication to why like financial institutions would be so adverse to this type of project, a denser project?
The short answer is that investors base a lot of their return requirements on interest rates, and with elevated interest rates over the past few years, they kind of raise their return thresholds in tandem to that. Because if you kind of think about it, like, why invest in a risky real estate construction project, for a given return when you can get that return or better just buying treasuries? So the risk appetite for real estate development has dropped considerably. At the same time, construction costs are kind of flat or up. So you sort of have the different parts of your financial model moving in the wrong directions.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And then before I say anything else, Chris, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I was just kind of out of curiosity, like what kind of retail are you envisioning for this plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I touch on it later in the presentation, but we can definitely talk about it now. So the goal with this retail is honestly to make it as flexible as possible, so that we can accommodate, basically the full range of potential tenant types that would want to move here. So we have been working with retail brokers that we know in this market, as well as kind of more retail specialists, to help design the retail and make sure that it's appealing to a lot of tenants. So honestly, it could accommodate a huge range of things. I mean, we'd love to see some combination of restaurant or restaurants plural. It could be sit down, could be fast casual. Something like a coffee concept or boba tea would be great. Services are pretty big right now, salons, medical spas, fitness is really big. We're hoping to put a Pilates studio concept into our Gateway Crossings project. So any of those types of uses. And actually, the one thing I'll add there, Chris, is that as a multifamily developer, retail, like in general, really isn't our thing. Like it's more of a pain than something that kind of drives the returns for our projects. But the benefit of that is that we really view it as more of an amenity for our tenants. And it means we'll sometimes stretch maybe a little bit more for a certain type of user that, okay, maybe isn't credit, maybe it's not another national bank, but a national bank isn't that exciting. It's not really going to do much to help us lease apartments. A nice coffee shop or wine bar, that's different. That really is something that residents would appreciate and use. So I can't say it works out that way every time. I can't snap my fingers and promise that we'll have a super cool, wine bar concept here or some type of small market. But we definitely lean in the direction of uses that are going to be appealing to our residents.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Yeah, I mean, makes a big difference having retail close by. I mean, it's just in Philadelphia a few days ago, and it's like so different from here. It's like you walk out and you just have everything like right at your doorstep, and makes a difference. I'll say that much.
Yeah, exactly. Early iterations of this project, when we were first looking at it, we sort of tried to reduce the amount of retail or keep it at a minimum for that reason I was describing, that it's very difficult to pull off and do it well in these types of mixed use buildings. But we sort of realized as we were getting into it that this is such a prominent location. And we really do need to create more of a sense of place here, that you really need retail as part of that. So retail has become much more of a focus of the project. And we've tried to make sure that, it's got the depth that retailers like, the visibility, the signage opportunities, all the things that they look for when looking at potential locations.
Great to hear.
One of the things that is very missing in that area is those retail amenities that people who live there need. Then you'd get a lot of neighborhood support for that retail because there's basically none on Stevens Creek. It's all car dealerships.
Plenty of places to buy a car. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably obvious, but this project is going to be a very different type of development than this stretch of Stevens Creek has seen in some time. And as sort of a first mover here, we really have to help transform this site and give it more of a residential feel, make it a place that people would actually want to spend time, would want to live here, and not just pass through it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Betsy, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you're thinking in terms of, let me preface this question by saying we have some housing over ground floor retail in what's supposed to be downtown Santa Clara, and the ground floor retail has been sort of notoriously empty for the probably 5 or more years that it's been there. The reason being that restaurants proper need stuff like venting and grease traps. Whereas if you're opening a store to sell shirts, you don't need that stuff. And I'm wondering if you're thinking ahead to, if you want eateries there, it really limits what can be there. You can do, you know, sort of a sandwich shop where all you need is, you know, refrigerators and toasters, but you can't do anything where you're cooking if you don't have the grease traps and the venting. And I'm wondering if you're thinking ahead toward that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. The short answer is yes. So we are planning to have shafts that go to the roof that can accommodate, you know, the type 1 hood exhaust ducts, the ducts for the dishwashers, line sets for mechanical HVAC. So that is being incorporated. And I guess I will add, although I said, you know, retail isn't our main focus, we do have some experience with it. We've got a lot of retail in our Oakland projects, and have frankly learned some through, you know, trial by fire about, you know, just what's involved with putting in a restaurant. And as you were just explaining, there's a lot of infrastructure that's required. It can get very complicated. But absolutely, the goal is to plan for all of that to make it as much as possible kind of a plug and play space for those types of retailers. And full disclosure, you know, we may or may not have a full service restaurant here. We don't know exactly what the demand from tenants will be, but we would like to be able to accommodate one if a really great full service restaurant, you know, comes along and is excited and wants to move in here.
Yeah, thank you for answering that one, and thank you for asking, Betsy. I wasn't sure how much more you were gonna go into the retail or not, but I was gonna ask the same question because we've heard from planners at San Jose and many others that the number one thing that a project can do to attract that sort of retail is install that stuff up front, because it's very costly and time consuming to do that. So that's good to hear.
Great. Okay. Well, I guess I'll move on, and again, feel free to stop me if any questions come up along the way. So moving in now to kind of the individual project elements, and this is all kind of organized per the project scorecard that I believe your group uses to assess projects. So I'm just going through it kind of one by one in the order of the scorecard. So starting with community, this is a process that we haven't really fully kind of dove into yet, but it is coming up shortly. Kind of so far, we've been trying to make sure that the project actually works and has kind of a viable path forward, and I think we do. So now is the time to start bringing in more groups and getting input, and so we can refine it and make it better. Just as part of the City of San Jose process, you know, we will have a community meeting that's for the public. It'll be noticed to all addresses within 1,000-foot radius of the site. This is not scheduled yet, but we're tentatively targeting May, kind of that time frame. So that should be coming up shortly. And then later in the process, after we've gone through our various rounds of review with the city, we will go before what they call the planning director hearing. Again, that's not scheduled because it's further out, but that is also a public meeting that'll be open to everyone, and it does get noticed. So basically everyone who was informed of the initial community meeting will again be alerted with the time and the login info for this director hearing. So still getting into it, don't have a ton of detail on this, but certainly if you all are aware of any people or groups that we should be in touch with, please let me know. So vibrancy. I think this is one where I feel pretty confident this project will be a net positive for San Jose. So I just kind of broke out a few of like the really big benefits that I see with the project. The first one is the public plaza, which you've seen in a few of the imagery so far. We're still refining that and kind of figuring out exactly the details as far as layout and the individual elements. So I think that will continue to evolve, but we know the location and the sizing, and we know kind of the overall feel we're going for. And we want this to be a place that really is just a great space to be, and that folks from the surrounding area will actually use. And I do think with Stevens Creek being such a car-oriented area, having a project like this in a space where pedestrians can stop and maybe get a cup of coffee or an ice cream and relax for a few minutes before they continue on their way really could be transformative for this area. Sort of a little bit of an oasis in a pretty suburban landscape. So the goal with this plaza ride is that there will be lots of seating, shade trees. We're trying to design it so that it could accommodate outdoor seating if we do have restaurants in the retail, which is definitely a distinct possibility. We're also going to try to incorporate some form of landscape buffer that does kind of protect or shelter users of the plaza from the traffic on Saratoga and Stevens Creek, because as you know, these are very busy roadways, and we don't want folks to feel like they're kind of, stranded out in the middle of a busy intersection. We've discussed the retail a little bit already, but again, planning approximately 14,000 square feet. We're trying to design it so that it provides for the maximum flexibility as far as potential users. And the preference is for tenants that will really be an amenity for the residents in the building and the surrounding community. We've also designed the buildings such that pretty much all of the sidewalk frontage, all of the building directly on the sidewalks on Stevens Creek and Saratoga are almost entirely lined with active uses. So most of the building amenities, that's things like the fitness center, co-work lounge, the lobby, all of that's going to be right on the sidewalk with big windows. That should really make those stretches of sidewalk feel just a little more kind of inviting and more active. This is just kind of a snapshot from our recent planning submittal. And this is all precedent imagery for what we're envisioning for this plaza. Again, this isn't the actual design, it's just the imagery that has been inspiring us, that gives you a flavor of sort of the look and feel and texture of what we're envisioning here. So, just the things that jump out, lots of greenery, lots of kind of decorative paving, lots of seating, and just a nice interface between the retail, the buildings, and the plaza itself. So transportation. I guess first thing here, just the way we run our buildings, our parking is unbundled. And what that means is that when you rent an apartment, your parking space isn't included in the rent. If you want a parking, we have it for you, but it is extra. And so for folks who, don't need a car, don't have one, they don't get that penalty of sort of having to pay for something that they don't use. So it just provides some incentive, for people, maybe not getting a car or thinking twice before getting another one. And I will add, we obviously do have parking here. We try to aim for about one parking space per bedroom, which is pretty typical for this type of project in this type of location. Parking is very expensive to build. I look forward to a day where we can do less of it. Unfortunately, today, this is still a very sort of car-oriented part of our region. You do sort of need a car to get to a lot of destinations. And so it's not something we can completely ignore. But we also try not to go overboard on it, right? Because again, it's very expensive. It's the most expensive part of the building to build. So we're trying to find that sweet spot. We will have secure bike rooms that accommodate about 150 bikes, about evenly split between both buildings. that should be more than enough. We actually find that our bike rooms don't get a ton of use on other projects, that a lot of residents with bikes tend to bring them up into their apartments. But nonetheless, we definitely want to provide secure storage for folks who want to use it. We will have a TDM plan. That's a transportation demand management plan, which just means kind of a guidebook or strategy for how we're going to try to minimize car trips made by our residents. And it usually includes a bunch of different measures, but most of them revolve around resources for residents. So, education on like, okay, what are the transit services in the neighborhood? We'll have a screen in a very public place, usually the lobby or the mailroom, that gives, live wait times for buses and other transit, just so residents moving into the building who might be new to the neighborhood, might be new to the region or even the state, know right off the bat, like, you have all these other options besides just cars for getting around. As I think you've probably seen in some of the imagery we've looked at, the project's going to improve the pedestrian environment in a major way. Just a lot wider sidewalks, more greenery, kind of providing a buffer between traffic and the pedestrian realm. The direction from the city so far and from Public Works is we'll be taking out what's colloquially called a pork chop at the intersection. That's kind of where they shave off the corner so that cars coming down Saratoga that want to make a right turn on a Stevens Creek can kind of do so without slowing down. It's a little more convenient for drivers, but it actually is quite dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists. And so filling that out and making more of a square intersection will be a big improvement for pedestrians trying to cross the streets there. And then we are also installing, at the direction of the city, these raised class 4 protected bike lanes on both the Stevens Creek and Saratoga frontages. And I'll show you an image of what that looks like. So this is actually from downtown San Jose. I believe it's pretty recent. This only went in the last year or two. This is at Almaden, I believe, in Park, possibly. But anyway, this type of bike lane that we're looking at here, from what I understand, is sort of the gold standard for bicycle safety. It's obviously it's separated from car traffic. It's got the landscape buffer. It's actually at the level of the sidewalk, so they're a little bit above the cars. They've got sort of waiting areas at the intersection where the cyclists can stop while they wait for the traffic signal to turn. So this really is like best practices in bicycle safety. And I believe San Jose is trying to kind of implement this in more locations. We will be probably one of the first in the city to have this, but any cyclists on the call, this should be a significant improvement from what's there currently. And then just in regards to the pedestrian environment, I always find it helpful to just kind of do a quick before and after. And so as I was putting this together, I just jumped on Google Maps and took a screenshot of the site today, kind of looking from the intersection. And this is what it's like. It's 90% asphalt. And it's not an exact same view, but I mean, roughly the same location. This is what is envisioned. So that kind of jumps out to me as just a much kind of richer, more interesting, more safe pedestrian environment. Any questions on transportation before I move on?
You're getting some in the chat function, Alden, and we got some hands.
I was muted. Yeah, we got some in the chat, and I can read those off real quick, and then we can get to hands. So it was Betsy asked if there will be somewhere to charge e-bikes inside of the bike parking rooms. And then she emphasizes that e-bike charging is usually a simple wall outlet. The same thing you'd plug a lamp or a vacuum cleaner into. So just making sure that there are those electrical connections in the room.
Yeah, that's a great question. Short answer, yes. I know we had those for our Gateway Crossings project, and we're probably not quite at that level of detail on the design for this project to like have them on the drawings, but I can confirm there will be outlets. Yep.
Excellent. And then Daphne, you have your hand raised, but you also asked in chat, so I'll let you go ahead and speak for yourself.
Oh, I think I missed. So all the parking is underground, and then also is that correct? And then also how many spaces I missed?
Yeah, so good question, good to clarify. So the parking is not above ground, it's above ground,
Oh,
although screened from the public. And the total parking, I have it on my cheat sheet here, is,
Jake might have it too, Alden.
let's see, about 724 spaces. And that is not including the retail parking, which is an additional 66.
And it was only one, is it only one floor of parking?
It's 3 floors of parking.
It's 3 floors.
3 floors of parking. Okay. And is that what is required by the city, or is that the ratio that's required by the city, or is that more?
It's not, Daphne.
The city is actually, yeah, pretty flexible in parking. They might have done away with minimum parking
They
requirements.
eliminated minimums in 2022.
Oh,
Yeah,
in San Jose. Okay.
So
which is great. I'd love to see more cities move in that direction. The
So-
parking that we're proposing here is more dictated by really what we think we need to lease apartments and compete with similar apartment communities in the area.
Sure. Okay.
So
Great.
Daphne, just to put too fine a point on it, Holland Partner Group could literally build 0 parking spaces.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the city could not fight them on that. That would
Yeah.
be within their right.
Okay. Yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, since like Stevens Creek and Saratoga is like a VTA stop, will there like then this could be like a retail destination, and 23 goes through like Santana Row and like Main Street Cupertino and downtown San Jose and like Alum Rock and all these like retail destinations. So like I wonder like if there's possible like collaboration with them to like make like this space like part of like this like retail like a retail route like yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We haven't had direct conversations with VTA yet, although certainly the subject of transit is a major topic that we're working with San Jose Public Works on. In this view, actually, you can see there is an existing bus stop on Stevens Creek that we will be replacing and shifting slightly. The location that's shown here, which is kind of like just on the left side of the plaza. I don't know if I can use my pointer here. You all can see that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the final location, but regardless, it'll be somewhere in that kind of vicinity. As far as creating new routes, that's an interesting question.
I mean, sorry, this will be part of like an existing route, like making like I guess like working with VTA to like make this part of like the like retail destinations in Route 23. And I'm also part of like the Stevens Creek like corridor vision project, and like we want to like make like Stevens Creek Boulevard more like bus and bike friendly. So like would you guys like be like interested in like supporting that, like since you guys like are on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In general, I think, a lot of the improvements that VTA would like to see to make this more transit oriented would also benefit our project, and it's kind of the direction we're trying to push the site towards. So I definitely think there's opportunities there for some collaboration, and we've only sort of recently begun the review process with the city, but I think we'll be getting much deeper into all those topics over the next few months.
Yeah, thank you. And then Betsy, you've had your hand up, and then Mason next as well.
Yeah, so I hope and believe that this is the artist rendering we're seeing here, but you have something that resembles protected intersection without without quite getting there. So for bicyclists continuing, I guess that would be south, maybe. I'm turned around. But for bicyclists continuing off to like where your cursor is,
Okay,
yeah.
yep.
That little ramp is on the wrong side of the pedestrians.
Okay.
So I hope you will run this by the Transportation Department. I hope you will run this by San Jose's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee before you start putting down sidewalks and green paint. There are standards and guidelines that will help you produce something that's a whole lot better. I've seen pork chops removed where, like the picture you were showing by Adobe in downtown, where it's a great thing and there are protected intersection features in its place. And I've seen pork chops removed where it just makes things worse. So
yeah, 100%. I should clarify that this image is especially the details of the bike lane that I think you're seeing here are all subject to refinement.
Yes.
This type of bike lane sidewalk interface is not one that the project team was very familiar with. So we were sort of trying to interpret the tea leaves of the city's first round of comments. This will 100% get more dialed in, and will certainly be compliant with the city standards before it moves into construction. Even looking at it now, I'm questioning whether this is right. So I'm not surprised that you're seeing some things as well. But this is definitely a first pass.
And then Betsy, just so I can visually capture which ramp you were talking about, is it for people going going right to left across the image, I guess, towards the bus stop?
If you start from the right side of the image, by where this imaginary car is pulling in, and you're headed just along, I guess that
would be Stevens Creek is the street in front of us.
And you're just continuing along Stevens Creek. The little ramp, your cursor's
right here.
Your cursor's in the right place. That little ramp is on the wrong side of the crosswalk.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Got it. I will take note of that.
Among other things, there's a few things that need to come together, and this is some odd geometry too. So make sure you're talking to somebody who A, does transportation and B, rides a bicycle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is definitely an initial stab and not final form. So there's much more tweaking to happen.
Can I ask a clarifying? Also, I know there's somebody else who has a question, but following that, when you were talking about the protected bike lane example from San Jose, so you're constructing that, is the onus to pay for that is on the developer? I'm just not unclear. Okay. So, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just one question, my usual question. Are you planning for some place where rideshare can pick up people from the apartment? The bus stop, the main frontage is not a good place. But is there a place on the side or the back where rideshare could be directed to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because this is kind of a higher density site, we don't really have space for kind of a driveway or sort of porte cochere type element that, would be ideal for rideshare. So I suspect in practice, probably it will mostly happen at the sidewalk, but that could change. I don't think that's an element that's been fully dialed in. I can say there is, I'm just jumping back through a few slides. So what's labeled a fire lane down here, kind of at Plan South, that's also how residents are going to access the garage for building 1. The fire lane kind of extends up towards the Paseo. So there is space for drop-offs kind of down in this location. We'd have to think through how we put that into practice. But that's something that we'll need to get probably dialed in a bit more. But it's a great question. And frankly, it's not one that's been fully thought through yet. So I'll make note of that.
Thank you.
And Mason, you've had your hand raised for a while.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jake. And Alden, I really like this project in general. But being the pessimistic former City Hall staffer, I just want to flag a few things for you.
Sure.
As you know, anytime you have a corner site, there's a lot of problems with it in terms of trash and fire. So if you haven't already received plan check comments on that, which you probably haven't because those are usually later on in the process, I would definitely tell you to vet that with city staff, given this fire lane and the Paseo. It's probably going to come up realistically. In terms of your ask for community organizations you might want to reach out to, I don't know if you've already reached out to the actual council member. I would highly encourage that so that this is on her radar. So you can try to get her to be a champion for this project. But District 1 has a leadership group that's made up of all the neighborhood associations. And I can't remember if they meet once a month or every quarter. I think it's once every other month. At least that's when it was when I was there. It probably changed. So that group would be a great group to get in front of. Specifically near your site is the Strawberry Park Neighborhood Association and the Winchester Neighborhood Association. The other history for this area is just urban villages in general across the city have been very contentious, as I'm sure you know. And so in District 1, I had to field a lot of calls regarding just in general density and the various impacts. So that's why I would tell you to reach out to the council member sooner rather than later. And then you probably already know the legal issues here of just the fight with Santa Clara and Cupertino over San Jose on this specific urban village. So just want to flag that there's a lot of Santa Clara politics that your Tasman project might be dealing with that you might navigate with this district council member that's right above you, who's a new district council member, is on one side of that council politically. And then just the question I have is, are you using any state laws or state density bonus law? And what combination, if any, are here?
Yeah, of course. No, I really appreciate all those suggestions. And it's great to have someone with much more sort of granular knowledge and experience of this area. On the question of state laws, this will be a density bonus project. So we'll be providing 5% of units deed restricted at very low income levels, and we'll be utilizing a few concessions and waivers.
Got it. And then is it 15% inclusionary? And then if so, are they mixed between both buildings or are they separated into one building?
The inclusionary units, so that 5% will be distributed kind of evenly across both. That'll satisfy a portion of the inclusionary requirements for the city, although obviously not all of it. So this will be kind of a mixed compliance option, I believe is what San Jose calls it. So the balance will be satisfied through in lieu fees.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alden, you go ahead and I think touching on the state density bonus stuff was your next sort of slides about density or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Let's get back there.
Sustainability.
Okay. We're almost there. High level of sustainability. Again, we're pretty early in the design. Some of this stuff needs to get more kind of modeled. Like we don't have all of our electrical and mechanical engineers on board who can help really dive into stuff. But I can highlight a few things that we will be doing. Just as a matter of policy across the board, across all our projects, we generally aim for LEED Silver certification. And because we try to be safe and usually go for a little bit more points than we would need for silver. We do sometimes get gold. I think we might be getting gold on gateway crossings. That certification is in process right now. There will be a ton of EV charging because San Jose requires more EV charging than I've seen anywhere else. I believe it's 50%, so half of all the spaces will have chargers installed day one, ready to plug in. The remaining 50% will be what's called EV ready. So it'll have kind of all the conduit and wiring needed to install chargers in the future. And the building's electrical system is designed to accommodate that load. We'll have energy efficient appliances. That's kind of something we do across the board. Drought tolerant landscaping. All of the irrigation for the landscaping that's at grade or at ground level is done with recycled water. We used to do it on the courtyard as well. They don't let us do that anymore, but everything at ground level will be reclaimed water. The project will treat 100% of the stormwater, and that's both for on-site, which means like within our parcel lines, and off-site, which means the sidewalks that aren't technically our property but are right next to us. We have to treat all of that, so we'll be doing that. Solar I put as to be determined here because we're not quite there yet, but we anticipate that at minimum we'll have solar hot water heating on the project, and solar panels are likely. We did have solar PV at our Gateway Crossings project in Santa Clara. We have some solar PV on another San Jose project that we're working on. So I would not at all be surprised, but we don't have kind of the full energy modeling Title 24 calculations done at this point. So I can't tell you with complete certainty, but that's kind of where we stand today. This kind of gets back to an earlier question that I think came from Carlin about the density and whether we're sort of maxing out the available density here. So a little bit of a recap, but we're not the maximum that's allowed. It actually, the urban village plan lets us go up to 250 units per acre. We're closer to 110. And again, that's because we're kind of basically maxing out the density that we can achieve with this building type, which is, kind of the max that we think is feasible right now. Just to clarify, the image on the right is from the urban village plan itself. This is not our project, but I just kind of thought it was interesting because this is our site. And although it's just kind of a purely conceptual artist rendering, our proposed project is, I think it's fair to say, quite a bit more dense than what is shown here. Affordability, this relates a little bit to the question about the density bonus, but just to recap, 5% of the units will be deed restricted affordable at the very low income level. We will use in lieu fees to satisfy kind of the remaining portion of San Jose's inclusionary requirements. And I also just want to note that there is no existing residential on site, so there's no displacement of current residents here. Legacy. So I think this kind of relates to sort of the historic resources on site. Big picture, the buildings there currently are pretty nondescript. They were all evaluated to see if they have any historical significance, and they do not. So they will be demoed. However, there is one kind of interesting component of the existing improvements that was deemed of interest, of note, potentially historic. And it's this mosaic mural that's in the photo here. And this was done by a local artist named Harry Powers, who passed away a few years. He was a professor at, I want to say San Jose State University, and did over his career a bunch of kind of sort of public art type projects in various locations around the Bay Area. But we will be preserving this and kind of incorporating it somewhere in the public realm of our project. So we don't know exactly where it's going to go, but it'll be somewhere on the exterior, where the public can see it and appreciate it, and we'll have some type of plaque there, kind of explaining what it is and its significance. So it's interesting. It's kind of abstract, mid-century modern type thing. I would say opinions seem to be divided on whether people respond to this or not, but nonetheless, it's interesting and something we look forward to incorporating. And with that, I think that's the last kind of project element covered on the scorecard. I did just want to give you some high-level status update on the project and kind of where we're at as far as the overall timeline. So we started our process with the city back in December when we requested a preliminary review. Based on the comments to that, we submitted our first formal development application in February, and we are anticipating to receive comments in the next week or two. Hard to gauge exactly how long the whole process will take, but we're anticipating that we will get through the process with the city and obtain entitlements probably summer, maybe late summer of this year. Following that, we do need some time to actually do the drawings. That can take anywhere from, I don't know, 4 to 6 months or more before we can submit for plan check. That we usually allocate about a year for. And then construction is, I'd say, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 years, probably closer to 3 years. We would stagger the building so that one building would come online probably about 6 months or so before the other. And so, adding all this up and looking forward, best case scenario, we would be opening sometime in 2029, which sounds crazy to say, and who knows where we'll all be at that time, but that's kind of how long it takes to get these projects built and opened. And that is all I have for you. So thanks again, and I'm happy to answer any more questions that have come up.
Yeah, thank you, Alden. Thank you for including that legacy piece as well. I didn't expect to see any legacy piece at the site, but thank you for including that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
No. And
Just a couple of thoughts I had. You might want to reach out to the automotive dealer employees as part of your outreach program, because I used to be an employee at several dealerships on Stevens Creek, and there was just nothing to do on Stevens Creek. You had to go forever, so you had to pack your lunch basically. And you might get some good feedback from those people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good reminder that there are a lot of stakeholders besides just people who live in the area. People who work there are definitely stakeholders as well.
And Mason, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, great point by Carlin. There's a Winchester Neighborhood Business Association in that same geographic area to the east of you. So the pro-business people would probably be more inclined to support a housing development that brings them customers.
Yeah, I'd also think about maybe talking to the Trans Bay Coalition, because they're helping with the Stevens Creek corridor vision project, and they'll be happy to support this since it's a, I guess, mixed use retail destination along Stevens Creek.
Quick question, Alden. Is this just an administrative review project, so you don't have to go to Planning Commission and Council because it's a signature project?
That's correct.
Got it. And then is it just one planning director's hearing that you anticipate by Q3 this year?
That's the hope. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. And then I do have a question. I know in the rendering right here, there's this deck above one of the, is that a deck above one of the retail spaces, or is that just a roof?
Yeah, let me
will
get
that
back
be
to
activated for residents?
Cleaner view. Where is that?
It was, I think, one of your first-ish. Yeah, right there, that little overhang.
Let's see. Are you looking at this roof of the retail for building 1 right here?
Yes, right there.
Yeah, good eye there. So that is representing kind of basically a rock garden. It's actually pretty simple. It's a solution we've used on one of our Oakland projects where we had a condition like this, where there was kind of a lower retail building that kind of stuck out from one side of the larger building, so that apartments on that side of the building would look out over the roof there. And we were trying to find kind of a simple solution that would turn that from an eyesore to more of like a feature. And our landscape architect working on that project had this really kind of genius idea of doing kind of an abstract pattern on the roof, using it's rocks. Basically, it's just 2 different colors of rocks, a light color and a dark color, to kind of create this pattern and make it just a little bit more of a feature rather than an eyesore. So that's kind of the thinking for how we'll treat the roof there. In full disclosure, in reality, you would probably have some equipment on that roof from that serves the retailers down below, which would get screened. So there'll be a little bit more going on the roof than kind of what you're seeing in this view. But it all depends on which retailers move in and the types of uses and all that.
Okay, thank you. And Betsy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I had a couple more in the chat that didn't get discussed. Is there a plan to issue transit passes to both residents and retail employees as part of the TDM stuff?
I would have to go back and look at our draft TDM plan on that. I don't believe we are, because I think I would have highlighted that in the transportation section if we were planning to. So I'm going to say no. But if that changes, I'll reach out to the group and let you know.
Out of curiosity, are
Yeah.
those passes something you've done at other projects? Are you familiar with the VTA's like Smart Pass program?
We have. It varies project by project. It's not something we would typically do, but in certain cases, it kind of makes sense. So we do have some experience with that.
Mhm.
Okay, I liked, there's a couple more here. I liked Carlin's comment about having a place for rideshare pickup and delivery. And I like it even more because just this past weekend, I was going past a newer apartment complex in Sunnyvale, and there was no place for somebody's grocery delivery person to stop. So they stopped in the bike lane, and we had a little conversation about that. It's dangerous when people park in the bike lane. But if you don't give, a real obvious place to do that, you're going to get people parking in the bike lane.
Yep.
And then you were in a plan view before. Is there going to be access to North Lake Drive here on the I guess east?
I'm sorry, by access, do you mean?
Like, if I live in building 2, can I exit onto North Lake Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Actually
In
helps
fact,
with
building 2 doesn't have any curb cuts on Stevens Creek. Actually, we have no curb cuts anywhere on Stevens Creek.
You mean curb cuts?
Driveways or any like vehicular access over the sidewalk.
Okay. But you could walk out of building 2 and onto Stevens Creek and get to the bus stop that way?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, besides all the retail, our main lobby is approximately this location.
Okay.
And I believe we have got a secondary lobby off of North Lake down here. And then for building 1, main lobby is right here, secondary lobby down here, and actually a third very small lobby down here.
I've seen a few too many choices and projects like this where some bunch of neighbors is objecting and is afraid that they're going to have a mess of people parking in the side streets, and the whole thing gets walled off from the neighborhoods. And I don't appreciate that when that happens.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I think that was it. So thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Hey, Alden, to upend this challenge that developers always face with heights and construction types and materials,
Hmm.
we've started to see and score some projects that use mass timber, and we're seeing that this is a really viable way to upend that sort of challenge that you always face. And so we're wondering if Holland has looked at that and if it's willing to consider that on this project, or if it's moving in that direction as a company.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's an interesting construction type that I think we're keeping an eye on. I will say, I don't work on the construction side. It's not really my area of expertise. My understanding is that when we've looked at it in the fairly recent past, in the past few years, there were some concerns about it and its viability for what we do. I couldn't tell you what those are. And so, we haven't evaluated this specific project using that type of construction. But I think we're keeping a close eye on it, and it could be a candidate for other projects.
Good to know.
Thanks, Alden. Yeah. I mean, we know developers could be risk adverse, but I think the payoff can be big. Jake and I toured a 19-story mass timber project in Oakland 14 months ago, and it was really impressive, and they got it built very, very quickly. So we're hoping it can be a solution to a lot of challenges that you all are facing, and just want developers to take that dip into the pool and make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. No, I hear you on that. And I know the project you're speaking of. I actually haven't toured it yet, but I very much want to. So I look forward to seeing that in person.
Orders of magnitude, how much is the cost difference between timber and mass timber and I guess I presume steel or steel framing? Is that type 1?
That's also, yeah, that is type 1. I honestly could not tell you that. I'm not sure. I could reach out to people on the construction side, but I'm not sure what that difference is, to be honest.
Yeah, and Betsy, I don't have an exact number on this project, obviously, but it is very extreme. So the difference between just going that extra floor up where they would have to swap over to a different construction material, it would dramatically increase the cost from at that range. So like you usually want to go much higher if you're going to go higher.
Well, he's got the height available to him. If it would pencil out on mass timber, the height is 220 feet, I think.
150, I think, for this site is the
250.
max. Yeah. And then do any other folks? Oh, sorry, Carl.
The other thing I was thinking about is North Lake Drive looks like it might be a park ride share because that goes clear through to Kylie.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I do think more of the sort of deliveries and rideshare traffic probably will kind of get directed to North Lake, and that is where we have the entries to the garage. And it's actually not a bad location because again, the main lobby is right up here. So I think that is where we would direct that kind of traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do have some other items to get to after when we move into scoring here on this project. So I just want to say if anyone's got some questions, maybe some last 5 minutes here on questions, and then we can move into scoring. Or maybe no one has any more questions and we can move into scoring. Either way.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to acknowledge that it you are first. Like this seems really hard to kind of activate this area that is sort of like a wasteland in my opinion. And
Yeah.
so I just want to acknowledge the difficulty of that and how much effort and thought you've put into this. And it'll be hard to be first, I think. So
Yeah, no, thank you for that comment, Daphne. I agree. And we're certainly aware that there have been lots of projects proposed for this stretch of Stevens Creek that have not come to fruition. It's a little bit of a graveyard of development proposals. So we very much don't want to to join that group. We want this to happen.
Yeah, graveyard of proposals. Yeah, there's quite a few here that have been withdrawn. So, yeah. If we're good here, which I think we are, and then I do have the plans as well. So when we move into our scoring session, I can go over some of this stuff with all of you as well if we have more questions. But I think now's a good time for us to move into our closed scoring session, Alden. So I want to
Great.
say thank you very much for joining us and sharing this with us. And we are one of the first groups that you've sort of reached out to or connected with in like the community. That
You are,
so-
yeah, and honestly, you guys get most of the credit for that, for finding us and jumping in and getting involved. So thank you for doing so, and really great to meet you all. And hopefully this is kind of the start of the conversation and not the end.
Can
It
we give
sure
Alden
will
a
be.
round of applause? Thank you, Alden.
Yeah, you will definitely be hearing from us tomorrow. I'll get you a preliminary review of what we settle on for your score tonight. So
Okay, well, really appreciate it and enjoy the conversation. I'm leaving with some good notes. I think well, Jake, you have my contact info, so if any members of the committee want to reach out afterwards, please feel free.
yeah, I can share that with all of you as well. If you have any more groups or anyone you want to connect Alden with this project.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everyone again, and have a good night.
Yeah, have a good rest of your night. I think Alex will take us down